Your Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, Vice President, Prime Minister of the UAE and the ruler of Dubai. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It's my pleasure to welcome all of you to the Global Women's Forum Dubai 2020. It's our honor to host some of the most greatest thought leaders and change makers to spark a dialogue on women's advancement and gender balance, and showcase inspirational women to global audience. The theme of this forum is the power of influence, which captures the essence of His Highness' vision to elevate the status of women across all sectors and levels in the UAE. The mission has been transformed into a reality through the creation of the Gender Balance Council and the Dubai Women Establishment, led by Her Highness Sheikha Manal bint Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum. Whether it's through ideas, actions, or new partnerships, we can shift perspectives, exchange knowledge, and shape policies that further women's positive impact around the world, building our influence to inspire families, communities, and even entire nations. Since the foundation of the UAE 48 years ago, our leadership's vision has guided the country in establishing itself as a global model for rapid progress in women's empowerment and gender balance. The UAE's experience in accelerating women's participation in the society and economy serves as an inspirational reference for countries seeking to transform the environment for women. We are confident that we will see greater achievements in the years to come. We are also delighted to host the first WEFI Summit in the MENA region. The summit provides a vital platform to empower growing community of women and entrepreneurs in the region with increased access to support the need to thrive and unleash their potential. Over the course of the next 2 days, we look forward to transformative conversations that will contribute to advancing gender balance worldwide and creating a better future for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you to Her Excellency Mona Al Marri.
President of the World Bank Group on stage for his keynote speech. ندعو الآن إلى المنصة ديفيد مالباس رئيس مجموعة البنك الدولي.
Wow, what a crowd. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to thank Your Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, Her Excellency Mona Al Marri, the government of Dubai, and the Dubai Women's Establishment for hosting this important forum. Thank you for your continued support to WEFI, the Women Entrepreneurs Finance Initiative. I'm very pleased to be here today with two inspiring women, Ivanka Trump and Kristalina Georgieva, who both played important roles spearheading WEFI and are championing women's issues. Also to Jeffrey Okamoto, who has done so much good work and has been serving as chairman of WEFI. Thank you all very much for the work that you do. The World Bank is proud to host this fund to help women entrepreneurs gain access to financing, markets, and networks, and to help remove regulatory and legal barriers to women's success. Along with the US, the United Arab Emirates is one of the 14 founding donors and is a generous supporter of WEFI. 2 years ago, here in Dubai, WEFI made its first funding allocations. To date, the fund has allocated $250 million, expected to support over 114,000 women entrepreneurs in 50 countries, and to crowd in more than $2.6 billion in private and public sector funding. WEFI is able to achieve such breadth in its programs thanks, of course, to our donors and to the program's implementing partners and their broad network of public and private sector actors. Going forward, I would like to encourage everyone to crowd in more partners so we can achieve even more scale. The forum's theme today is important: the power of influence. Women entrepreneurs are already changing the business landscape in the Middle East and North Africa. A number of inspiring women entrepreneurs from the MENA region were invited to join us here today. If you're an entrepreneur yourself, I'd like to ask you to stand up and be recognized. Please stand up. Let us know who you are, the entrepreneurs in the room. We're very appreciative of your efforts. Starting and growing a business is a powerful tool for women to overcome poverty and build better lives for themselves, their families, and their communities. But entrepreneurship is just one piece of the puzzle. We're nowhere close to a world where a girl born today has the same opportunities as a boy, where women get paid fairly, and where they can become entrepreneurs, pilots, mathematicians, or engineers if they so choose. We estimate that in MENA, Middle East and North Africa, increasing female labor force participation to the levels of men could boost regional GDP by 47%. Currently, US $575 billion in regional income is lost because of gender-based discrimination in laws, social norms, and practices that constrain women's rights and opportunities. Fortunately, more countries recognize that their economies can only reach their full potential with full participation of both women and men. At the World Bank, we're focusing on helping countries achieve good development outcomes. I'll now say some more on two key areas where we've been working hard: laws and regulations, and broadening the access to finance. First, we need to work toward having laws, policies, and regulations that empower women to succeed in the economy. The World Bank's Women, Business, and the Law report tracks 8 indicators for women, from entering the workforce to living in retirement, across 190 economies. These indicators are aligned with the 3 foundational factors that the US-led Women's Global Development and Prosperity Initiative, WGDP, is focusing on. The pillars are women prospering in the workforce, women succeeding as entrepreneurs, and women enabled in the economy. This program, launched in February of last year, has already reached 12 million women around the globe. We'll be hearing more about this important initiative today. According to the Women, Business, and the Law report, over the past 2 years, 40 economies enacted 62 laws to advance gender equality, including removing restrictions on industries, jobs, and the number of hours that women can work, expanding paid maternity and parental leave, and introducing protections against sexual harassment in the workplace. Exactly. These are big steps and they're important. MENA has historically had the lowest average score on the report's index. However, this year, the region made the most progress. Jordan, Lebanon, Algeria, and Bahrain made a number of reforms. The UAE and Saudi Arabia in particular made the most reforms. Since Since 2015, the UAE has pushed for legislative reforms, including equal pay and female representation in corporate boardrooms. That's right. In Saudi Arabia, laws were changed to protect women from employment discrimination and to prohibit employers from dismissing a woman during pregnancy and maternity leave. And there is room for every country to improve. I'd like to note the recent changes in the United States toward paid family leave. Another important World Bank initiative that focuses on regulations is the Empowering Women by Balancing the Law initiative, EWBL. It provides countries with the analytical tools to revise outdated laws on child marriage, domestic violence, female genital mutilation, and sexual harassment at the workplace. And second section, broadening access to finance and markets. Globally, the financial gap for women-led businesses is $1.5 trillion. On the venture capital fund, women enter accelerator programs at roughly the same rate as men, but only 11% of small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs, that receive seed funding are women-led. Today, the International Finance Corporation is launching a new program, ScaleX, which rewards accelerators for not only including women in their programs, but also helping them access early-stage financing. On the access to markets front, it's far more difficult for women entrepreneurs to access markets than for men. Only 1% of global private procurement goes to enterprises owned or operated by women. We at the World Bank Group have committed to double our corporate sourcing for women-owned firms by 2023. Digital technology can help women overcome some of these obstacles. In countries which are still largely cash-based, using electronic payment systems can boost the growth potential of women entrepreneurs. In Egypt, for example, financial service provider Fawry, an IFC investee company, enables about 2.5 million transactions per day. This allows many poor people and the SMEs serving them to transact cheaply and efficiently. Recognizing the potential of women entrepreneurs, the company recently launched Heya Fawry, Egypt's first female e-payment agent network, whose goal is for women to access e-payments. Digital technologies can also help on the market side. Wi-Fi programs in Algeria, Djibouti, Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, Morocco, and Tunisia are training women entrepreneurs on how to use e-commerce platforms to scale their business, make them much bigger. Today, the World Bank is launching a partnership with UPS Corporate to help women-led businesses in MENA export their products and access new markets using e-commerce. The World Bank Group, through initiatives such as Wi-Fi, Women Business and the Law, Empowering Women by Balancing the Law Initiative, ScaleX, all of these various programs, among others, is helping unlock constraints faced by women. There's still much to do, and everyone in this room can play a role. I'm now very pleased, I'm honored to be here, and what a great crowd, and I'm now very pleased to turn over the program to my friends Kristalina and Ivanka. Kristalina Georgieva and Ivanka Trump. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Please welcome to the stage John Defterius from CNN. رحبوا معي الآن بجون دفتريوس من CNN.
Thank you. Good morning. I thought we were going to get our order coming up to the stage a little bit wrong. I'd love to have both of you on the stage at the same time, but your time will come, Ms. Trump. It's great to see you here in Dubai. Your Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid, thanks for the invitation. Sheikh Hamdan bin Rashid, it's great to see you in the front row as Crown Prince. Mona Al Marri, I have to thank you for the invitation yet again. There's a whole stream of ministers here. His Excellency Mohammed Al Gargawi, great to see you. I want to pause for just 1 second here to give a nice round of applause to the organizers, because I was involved in this 2 years ago. We had a good turnout. It's very much kind of like the Dubai way. We were here and we went there. So let's give a nice round of applause to the organizers for this sort of turnout. It's excellent. And the progress that we've made in that time frame in 2 years only. We'll get into that with our next guest. You know, I was thinking, what's the best way to introduce the head of the International Monetary Fund? You know that tingling feeling you get when you see a major breakthrough? I felt that as a very young child with Martin Luther King and then his passing, but the barriers that he broke down in the United States that everybody knows around the world gives you that tingling feeling. I felt the same when Madame Lagarde became the first female managing director of the International Monetary Fund, and then I thought, is that an aberration, or could it happen again? And boom, the barrier went down a second time. Very uniquely, the first candidate from an emerging market, the first candidate to run unopposed. There was no doubt that they wanted her in. And then while we're knocking down barriers for females, let's knock down barriers against ageism, because she was kind of come into office at 65, and they had to break the rule and say, we want her so much. You can't tell she's 65 by looking at us, for sure, right? But they made an exception because they wanted her as the managing director of the International Monetary Fund. I hope I didn't give a secret away, but it was public knowledge that you're 65. And you certainly don't look like it. Let's give her a warm welcome to the Global Women's Forum. Kristalina Georgieva. Great to see you.
Thank you very much.
Now you know what I'm talking about, right? She travels around the world and she's super fit. It's good inspiration for all of us. Good to see you. President Malpass made some very interesting points about what's been accomplished here in the Middle East and North Africa the last couple of years. If I look globally at the gender gap, 1990, it was 27%. 2018, with the latest figures and calculations, we're at 20%. That's good, not great. Now, I have to get your input on the fact that a fifth of the countries either went backwards or didn't make any changes on legislation. So what do we say? We've made progress, but come on, you can't have a fifth of the world not moving on gender equality. How would you put it?
I am convinced that the tide is turning. Just look around. We are finally seeing women stepping up and men supporting that. Why? Because, yes, gender equality is morally right, but beyond that, it is great economics. Take the case of women entrepreneurs, especially in SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprises. It is now categorically proven women are better entrepreneurs than men, they say. So, if we want the economy to prosper, we have to create space. And knowing that growth rates in most countries, the United States is doing great, some 40 countries are growing 5% or more, but the rest of the world is sluggish. Knowing that, we need the boost that women can provide.
Great. In fact, let's drill down to the Middle East and North Africa and how much of a difference it can make here. You have some calculations. What would happen in a decade if we can close the gender gap throughout? I mean, I think it's worth noting in the UAE, they leaped up in the last UNDP report, 23 spaces to 26 globally. So it is happening, but calculate what sort of difference it could make to the GDP in this region alone with that gap shrinking.
Well, let me first say that we owe the UAE a debt of gratitude, not just for the women here, for women everywhere, because what has been achieved and continues to be driven is so impressive. And yet, big chunks of the world don't actually know that. So I think it is for the media amplify this message. The time for women is turning in the Middle East. You asked what would be the benefit. Let me start still from the global number. If tomorrow we wake up in a world with 100% gender equality, the wealth of this world would be, according to the most recent data, $172 trillion bigger.
Jeez.
We would be a much richer world. Take the Middle East. If we are to just bring the Middle East to par with the more advanced economies, if we only do that step, over the next years, there would be $1 trillion more in output for everybody to share. So we are talking about very significant improvements. David Malpass also flagged the increase in GDP. But beyond the economic impact, what we do is we create more diverse workplace, more diverse boardroom, and in the end, we make better decisions. And also we know that what women often bring more is consensus orientation. When women are engaged, then we have more peace, peace on the planet.
That's a proven fact. That's not an opinion.
This is definitely a proven fact. So I think for the well-being, not just the economic well-being, but also the overall health of our societies, the advancement of women is a fabulous, fabulous gift.
Very quickly on this point, but I think it's an important one to strike because it's part of your gender report. There's a lot of power within governments themselves on fiscal policies. Why would they make a difference? You never think about the budget or taxation or amendments in terms of laws making that much of a difference.
So for those of us who might have heard that IMF stands for it's mostly fiscal, we have just proven it by today issuing a paper on how fiscal policies can support gender equality and the economy. And here are the three conclusions. One, it is cost effective. It doesn't cost you more, it actually saves you money. Two, gender budgeting is not such a difficult thing. It means that when you look at your budget, you have to think how would investments either restrict or enhance the role of women. For example, getting all girls in school and making sure they graduate, and graduate in professions, in skills for the future, so they can be part of the economy of the future. Or when you do infrastructure investment, think how that would be good for women, especially in poor countries. Make sure that women can have access to water, that they can actually provide better health to their families. And three, think, is there anything that is discriminating against women? Very often in fiscal policies, the secondary earner is taxed differently than the primary earner. The primary earner happens to be usually a man. So by just changing taxation to make it all the same, whether you're a primary or secondary earner, or even encouraging secondary earners, that lifts up female participation. And I think I wouldn't share a big secret if I say that we have agreed with the United Arab Emirates that our next engagement here would be on gender budgeting.
Oh, right. Okay, very good. It is important, is what you're saying.
Yep.
I think we'd be remiss not getting your insights into the global economy and some of the challenges we have now. I'll do this in 7 to 8 minutes, but you know, we had a black swan coming with the coronavirus. Nobody anticipated the impact, and China comes into this crisis with the slowest growth in nearly 3 decades. Is it going to cost China 1 percentage point of growth, do you think, in 2020 as a result of the surprise and the shock?
Well, it is too early to say because we don't yet quite know what is the nature of this virus. We don't know how quickly China would be able to contain it. We don't know whether it would spread to the rest of the world. What we do know, however, is that yes, indeed, it is going to affect global value chains, already affecting some. It is affecting tourism. It is affecting travel. What we also know that if it is contained rapidly, there can be a sharp drop and then a very rapid rebound, what is known as a V-curve. And we are very much hoping this is going to be the case. But let me say about China, it has been slowing down naturally, transiting from what we can call high speed to high quality growth. Understandably, as many other economies have done it. And as a result of the reduction of trade tensions with the Phase 1 agreement signed between US and China, we actually have been predicting some improvement for 2020 in the projections for China. Bottom line is, we are in a world with more uncertainty. And we have to learn as policymakers, as business people, to try to build more predictability to counter that uncertainty. In other words, the virus we cannot predict, we cannot stop. But making errors in our policies, creating unpredictability in what interest rates might be or how we are going to go about trade, that is something in our hands.
Well, you raise a very interesting point. Because of what China's going through right now, and they have Phase 1 of the agreement with the United States, and they took action against the European Union over the weekend, is it better to back off on the trade tensions because of the crisis we're faced with?
It is better to back off on trade tensions, period. Trade is good for growth. It is good for jobs. It is good for poverty. Not very well-known fact, but if you take an average high-income family in an advanced economy, it has benefited 25% of the cost of goods because of trade. But if you take a poor family, it has benefited 2/3 of the cost of goods because of trade. So we have to work towards a way in which differences are well addressed. This being said, we also have to acknowledge that we are falling behind in reforming the trade system. There are reasons why people are anxious about trade, because domestically not always enough attention is paid to those who may be negatively impacted by dislocation caused by trade, and also because our trade regime is still stuck in the 20th century.
So the president has a point. President Trump has a point.
The president has a point because services are not part of agreements by and large. E-commerce, not part of agreements, and they are now hugely important in the economy. And most significantly, technology transfer is not well regulated. So we have to modernize trade, because if we don't, and if we don't pay attention to the losers of trade advancements, then we are not going to be able to continue to reap off the benefits of trade, especially for the poorer people.
Would you suggest here that global growth, which is fairly sluggish at 3.3% on the projections, could come below 3% because of what we see in China and the fact that the economic cycle is 10 years old?
Well, we have to be concerned about sluggish growth. It has been, last year has been the lowest growth in a decade, 2.9%. And what is more important to recognize is that central banks, in a synchronized manner, cutting interest rates, have given 0.5 percentage boost to growth last year. 49 banks cut interest rates 71 times. If we didn't have that, we would have been practically in recession. Looking to the future, there has to be more action on the fiscal front, and we at the fund advocate for that very strongly, and there has to be more action on structural reforms. Relentlessly improve competitiveness, remove red tape, create conditions for economies to lift up productivity, because we are now stuck with low productivity growth, low economic growth, low interest rates, low inflation. To get unstuck will take more aggressive policy action that we have seen so far. And just to answer your question on whether China would drag growth further down, it is true, China today is a much bigger share of the world economy than during SARS. During SARS, 8%. Today, 19%. So if things go bad for China, this is not good news for the rest of the world. But they're working very hard to contain the epidemics. They have poured $115 billion equivalent liquidity so they can perk up the economy. And they have fiscal space to do stimulus for the regions that are most impacted. So
can we hold on to 3% growth this year, you think?
For now, we are saying 3.3 is our forecast. There may be a cut. We are still hoping it would be in the 0.1, 0.2 percentage space. But again, I wish I had the ability to tell you, to look in the crystal ball. This is a particular case when I advise everybody not to jump too prematurely to conclusions. There is still a great deal of uncertainty. We operate with scenarios, not yet with projections. Ask me in 10 days.
10 days' time. Okay, I'll follow you up on that one.
Yes.
I have two quick questions because I know we're short on time. If I was going to look out to the region here, we've had populist protests over the last 18 months, but most recently we've seen very vociferous protests in Lebanon. They have an economy of about $50 billion and a debt of about $87 billion. This is a crisis situation. They said they just need technical assistance. But it's not a time for business as usual. It seems like they're not waking up to the call.
It is very important to recognize two things. One, that the economy of Lebanon does need very deep structural reforms. And the sooner they're done, the better for Lebanon. Two, Lebanon has received an unfair share of troubles elsewhere. And that is also something that we need to be mindful of. We are sending a small team to Lebanon upon the request of their authorities. We will do our best to give a diagnostics and recommendations on measures they can take. But the taking is in the hands of Lebanon. And let's hope that we would see the courage to move towards changing the trajectory for the economy.
But the early indications are that the budget structure looks very much like the year before. And there's also a political squeeze on the ruling party. What would you suggest to them? Don't go to business as usual and get on with it?
Well, where would business as usual take us? To basically the same place we are today. And why are the Lebanese people on the street? They do not want business as usual. So it doesn't really matter so much what we say. Listen to your people.
Terrific.
What they say.
Which is great. It's true. Final questions, because I'm based here in the UAE. When the report came out with the IMF saying, worst case scenario if you don't reform on your budgets because of kind of the new normal of oil between $50 and $55 a barrel instead of $75 to $85 a barrel, it could really hit sovereign wealth up to $2 trillion in 15 years. We see reforms. You're suggesting put the pedal to the metal and really push harder?
That's exactly what we are saying. We were all tuned to oil picking up in 20 years. It may pick up earlier with all that we see happening in terms of
you're saying peak demand.
Yes, decarbonization. But the good news is that the UAE has been incredibly committed to diversification way before we came up with our report. So I think there is receptivity of our message. Do it and do it faster. And I'm sure this is what we would see.
Great. Great to see you. Let's give a nice round of applause to the Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. I'll walk you down.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please welcome our final keynote speaker, Ivanka Trump, advisor to the President of the United States of America. ندعو الآن إيفانكا ترامب مستشارة رئيس الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Thank you, Your Excellency, for that beautifully kind introduction a little bit earlier. On behalf of the United States, I want to express my gratitude to you, to Her Highness Sheikha Manal, and to the entire Dubai Women's Establishment for hosting the Global Women's Forum Dubai. Today, we are here to celebrate all that women are achieving in economies throughout North Africa and the Middle East. We are incredibly grateful to be joined by His Highness Sheikh Mohammed. Your presence here means so much, and His Highness the Crown Prince as well. Thank you both. Thank you both for your strong and steadfast commitment to advancing women's economic participation across Dubai and the broader United Arab Emirates. We are also here to thank some incredible partners from around the region, but two people who have been steadfast partners with our administration's efforts to deliver greater opportunity to women and girls around the world. So thank you to World Bank President David Malpass and IMF Director Kristalina Georgieva. Thank you. Great presentations as well. To everyone gathered here today, I'm delighted to have you join us for our second annual regional summit of the Women's Entrepreneur Finance Initiative, otherwise known as WEFI. Since we launched this historic initiative 2 years ago, the UAE and the United States as founding members, we have mobilized $2.6 billion of both public and private sector funding that invests in more than 100,000 women-owned businesses in the developing world. Truly extraordinary. This afternoon, we are proud to be joined by dozens of these inspiring women entrepreneurs. Each of you has overcome immense challenges and are pioneering brighter futures for your families and your nations. You inspire us all, and I'll ask you to stand one more time so we can thank you. We want your success stories to be the future of millions of women across the region. This is the vision that brings us here together today. The theme of this year's forum is the power of influence. We know that when women are free to succeed, families thrive, communities flourish, and nations are stronger. In the United States, we have seen how much progress can be made within one lifetime. A few decades ago, women could not take out a loan without a man or own a credit card in their name. They searched for jobs in the female section of employment listings and made up only 25% of managers in the 1980s. Today, American women are leading in every aspect of society. Last year, there were more women than men in the United States workforce, with women securing over 70% of new jobs. Women in America now represent 40% of primary breadwinners. We know that all of you here today can help pioneer historic reforms in this region within your lifetimes. Already, we are tremendously encouraged by recent progress. Here in the UAE, I would like to commend Emirati leaders for removing barriers to women joining the workforce and developing a national strategy that recognizes women as central to sustainable growth. Last year, more than 70% of Emirati university graduates were women. 70%. It's incredible. Yet only 10% of UAE's total national income is derived from women, and we know that this is going to grow and flourish in the years ahead. Progress ultimately builds upon progress. I want to congratulate 5 other countries in the Middle East and Northern Africa region for instituting significant reforms over the past 2 years. Saudi Arabia has changed laws to respect women's freedom of movement and access to credit and financial services. Bahrain has introduced legislation to prevent discrimination in the workplace. Jordan eliminated legal restrictions on women's ability to work at night. Morocco expanded women's land rights. And Tunisia introduced critical laws to combat domestic violence. We all need to applaud these achievements and advancements. And yet, we won't grow complacent because there's still so much more work to be done. Too many women continue to face obstacles to entering the workforce, starting their own businesses, reaching their full potential, and charting their own future. In the Middle East and North Africa, on average, women have only half the legal rights of men. In this region alone, women's economic equality has the potential to add $600 billion to global annual GDP by 2025. This number represents far more than an economic boom. It represents millions of lives full of promise. Mothers who could provide for their children, daughters who could be the first to graduate high school, and young women who could start businesses and become job creators. This is the future that we can and we must achieve together. To seize opportunities for progress in this region and throughout the world, last year the President launched a brand new initiative, which President Malpass spoke about a little bit earlier, called the Women's Global Development and Prosperity Initiative, also known as WGDP. This landmark White House initiative is the first ever coordinated US government approach to global women's economic empowerment. WGDP focuses on 3 pillars: providing vocational education for women, empowering women to succeed as entrepreneurs, and eliminating the legal and societal barriers that prevent women from fully participating in the economy. Our goal is ambitious. It's to reach at least 50 million women across the developing world by 2025. But in our first year alone, we've impacted more than 12 million women. Over the past year, I have had the opportunity to travel to many countries and meet with women who are benefiting from our work. And I want to share some of these stories which will really exemplify how WGDP is changing lives. At the WGDP launch last year, I met with Liliana Com to learn about how her organization, AFLEC, empowers women in Uganda to start companies and to work as network engineers. Through WGDP's partnership with AFLEX, we are working to close the gender gap in critical STEM fields and inspire a whole new generation of women leaders in tech in Uganda. In Ethiopia, I met an amazing, inspiring woman named Sarah Abera. 15 years ago, Sarah began a textile business with just 10 employees. She quickly excelled, and she earned financing and support through US government programs. Today, Sarah employs more than 500 people, most of them women. Most of those women she taught their craft to. And now she is the largest exporter of handmade woven garments in her country. Extraordinary. When I visited Morocco this past November, I was proud to stand beside leaders as they signed legislation to recognize women's right to own land. This reform was revolutionary for the women I encountered in Morocco's rural Gharb region. I watched a young mother receive title for 3.5 hectares of land, and she rejoiced and she wept over the prospect of being able to invest in the productivity of her farm and leave that farm to her children. I witnessed an older woman walking through the olive trees, reveling in the story of progress achieved in her lifetime. It is this courage to shatter barriers of inequality and blaze a new path of opportunity that gives hope to millions. Recently, our White House economists found that if nations address the 5 legal barriers that WGDP is focused on reforming, specifically accessing institutions, building credit, owning and managing property, traveling freely, and restrictions on women's employment, women's economic activity could increase annual global GDP by around 7.7 trillion for these 5 foundational laws alone. Imagine the lives transformed, the cities that would be built, the new schools that would open their doors, the children that could be helped if we could come together and make these reforms a part of our future. Every woman here today has an incredible story. You're brave innovators and bold entrepreneurs that are bringing greater opportunity to your home countries. You are the women who are going to imagine new industries, discover new cures, create works of beauty, and improve lives around the world. Together, we come together to ask nations in this region to continue to work with us to break new ground, to institute changes legally and culturally that will give every woman a chance to determine her own destiny and bring greater peace and prosperity to this region and to the world. Thank you again for hosting me here in Dubai. Thank you to all the leaders present, and of course to the courageous women who are pioneering change. I can't wait to see what we can all achieve working together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ivanka Trump.